Good morning, everybody. Wisconsin State Senator Romaine Quinn is our very special guest today, Thursday, December 28th, 2023. For DrydenWire.com, I'm Ben Dryden, and you're watching DrydenWire Live, presented by Americans for Prosperity Wisconsin. AFP Wisconsin works to reignite the American dream and break down government barriers that hold us back from our full potential. Learn more at americansforprosperity.org and join AFP to fight for more freedom for all Wisconsinites. As a reminder, Senator Quinn joins us live on the last Thursday of every month. Wow, this is the last show of the year for you and for us, actually. This is cool. Right here on DrydenWire Live. If you've missed any of our previous chats, you can find a recording of those on our website at DrydenWire.com, right here on our Facebook page in our videos tab, or just go to YouTube, where we store all of our videos at youtube.com/DrydenWire. Because we do these shows live, this also means this is a time for you to ask Senator Quinn your questions. So please feel free to put in a question during today's live show. With that, we welcome Wisconsin's 25th District Senator Romaine Quinn back to the show. Romaine, good morning.
Morning.
How was Christmas?
Christmas was good. How was your Christmas/birthday?
It was good. We were spending it in Chicago.
Does your listenership know your birthday, that you share a birthday with baby Jesus?
I know.
Do you have you got to have some childhood trauma growing up.
No kidding.
Sharing a birthday with literally Jesus Christ.
It's a pretty high bar. Let's just say.
You're like a bunch of neglect trauma going on because no one actually cares about Ben's birthday.
No. And there's some benefits to it. One, it's easier for people to remember. Two, it's kind of cool, right? Having your birthday and Christmas. I never had to work in my life on Christmas Day, or go to school on Christmas or my birthday. The downsides were, it's a hey or happy birthday and Merry Christmas. So I always got, screwed on gifts because one gift turns into two things. And I never got to have a birthday party because you can't invite friends over on Christmas for your birthday because they're all, opening presents at Christmas. So that's the biggest downside. Never actually had to have a birthday party on my birthday.
So any quirks you have as an adult stems from you not having your own birthday. So.
lot of trauma there.
Right.
All right. So I wrote down a couple of things I want to talk to you about, but one mainly, and that is the Wisconsin State Supreme Court. So you come on the last Thursday of every month. This has happened since then. The Wisconsin State Supreme Court ruled a 4-3 ruling that legislative maps were unconstitutional, ordering new lines for 2024. I know this is something that you and I have talked about before, about a likelihood of this happening after Janet Protasewicz won the election to make it a 4-3 liberal, apparently 4-3 liberal Supreme Court, that this would get then brought up again. So for people who don't know what this is all about, before I get your opinions and views, what happened?
Well, what happened is something we knew was going to happen. The fate of our current maps seemed to be pretty predetermined. So, yes, the court ruled that our legislative maps are now invalid, that were already sent back to us by the federal Supreme Court, adopted by our former state Supreme Court, and put into place for our last election, the same election that I ran under. So now the court is saying that those maps are invalid, and that the legislature has to send them new maps, but they're going to solicit maps also from the complaining parties. And then they're hiring two people from outside of Wisconsin, one from New York, a political scientist, and another from somewhere else. I forgot to look before the show started, to review the proposals to see if they fit what they want for maps. And then they will impose those maps most likely on the state of Wisconsin. So it's a mess, but we knew it was coming. For most people, if you don't know, the legislative maps are redrawn every 10 years with the census. So we have a census, we figure out how many people are in Wisconsin, where do they all live, and then we draw maps to make sure every district has the same exact amount of people in it. So I'm the senator of the 25th. I have the same amount of people as the senator from the 29th, the 1st, the 10th, you name it. And then every 10 years we do that to update the population. So now we are in the middle of a decade. We are getting another set of maps, which again is going to be, I think, confusing for voters as they head into the next polling location, because the state rep, he or she, may not be their state rep anymore or their state senator. So it's interesting times we're in. Very political.
Yeah, so I'm going to read just this very beginning. Oh, good morning, Renee. Thanks for watching. This is just the intro to WisPolitics.com article. It said this was following this announcement. A split Wisconsin Supreme Court ruled GOP-drawn legislative maps are unconstitutional, ordering new lines for 2024 elections in a major win for Dem lawmakers. First, could you speak to the unconstitutional part? Do you know what they were referring to there?
Yeah, and frankly, it's kind of a joke. I think if someone wants kind of an independent take on this, is to go into the verdict, the ruling, I think it's 230 pages, and read the dissent from Justice Hagedorn. If you remember, Justice Hagedorn was elected by conservatives, but he's very much a swing member of the court. And he sided with the Democrats last time to take Governor Evers' maps, if you recall. Now, those maps were eventually thrown out by the federal Supreme Court because they violated the Voting Rights Act, but he did side with the Democrats, and now he has dissented in this case against the 4 liberal majority members of the court. Because
Adam Jarko is calling me right now. Should I answer the phone and put him on the air?
Oh, God only knows what could come out of that.
Just kidding. I'm sorry. Please continue. I sorry to interrupt.
No, you're fine. So basically read that dissent because he rightfully points out that the majority of the court, and for those that think our current maps are gerrymandered, the court did not rule that our maps are gerrymandered. What they ruled was they believe our maps are unconstitutional because they have a contiguity issue. What does that mean? Not all of our districts in the state are compact exactly.
Right.
There are some districts that have islands.
Islands, right.
But it only has islands because of certain activities, right? Municipalities will annex properties outside of their boundary. Maybe it's an airport. Maybe it's a municipal building or a well. And so when you look at what are these islands, a vast majority of them, 20 people or less even live in them. So the amount of people is super small. So if the court wanted to fix this, they could have just said, you know what, these maps are now wrong because they're not contiguous. We're just going to fix the assembly seats that have these. No. Instead of doing that, they said all of you are up. All of you get new maps statewide. So again, it's quite obvious they're trying to find a means to achieve a political outcome. And the best part is these 3 same liberal justices, not Janet, she wasn't on the court, already ruled 18 months ago that the contiguity issue was fine and constitutional. They accepted a map proposed by Governor Evers that had these islands. They were fine with it 18 months ago. Governor Evers was fine with it 18 months ago because he submitted his own maps with these islands in them. And now, suddenly, there's a new election, and the court finds that, our ruling 18 months ago that we made ourselves, we're going to find that unconstitutional, even though we thought it was fine just 18 months ago. So it couldn't be more obvious that they are looking for any out to achieve a political outcome. And again, I mean, you can argue right or wrong. They were elected to do what, a certain priority, what a certain side wants, but I mean, at least call it for what it is. It's just so obvious.
So this is every 10 years, this happens. So who's ever probably, well, I'm just speaking more hypothetically or in theory here, that whoever is kind of in control of the legislature at the time, Republicans or Democrat, whoever has the majority, they have an advantage, right? I mean, in theory. Now, granted, a governor, depending on the governor is a Republican or Democrat, but in theory, they would have the advantage. Maybe that's the wrong word, but I'm going to use it because I can't think of the right word here. But have an opportunity, how about that, to draw these maps that would benefit them, of course. And if it were Democrats that had the majority, then they would do the same thing. Am I missing something there, or is that just kind of, that's an important piece to this. It's not just like we Republicans came in and did it, like we Democrats could come in and do it too. Every 10 years, just this time around, it happened to be the Republicans. Am I off on this?
No, you're right. Every 10 years, it has to be done, regardless of which political party happens to control any of the houses or the governorship. So it's a timing thing. We time it with the federal census, and we are constitutionally required to do this. It's not an option. It's not like, we love these maps, let's keep them for 20 years. We have to do this every 10 years. And so the fact that we are doing this now 3 times in 1 decade. It's unprecedented.
That was a question I wrote down when we were talking. When you said every 10 years, and I wrote down 2024. Like, we're a few days away from 2024. This is finished. So it has been done already.
Yep.
And then now it's going to be redone. But this will still be in no matter what happens next year. I mean, so right now you're saying there will be new maps. There is absolutely zero way the current maps will be in existence during next election. Is that right?
That's my opinion. Now, there's always chances. I think, we might be filing a motion for them to reconsider their opinion. Obviously, I don't see them reconsidering their opinion. I think there could be opportunities to maybe appeal to the federal Supreme Court, but who knows if they'd even take it and on what grounds. I don't know what an appeal would look like. So if I had to guess that we absolutely will have new maps, and so you could potentially absolutely have a new, for sure, state assembly rep up next time in your district, and potentially a new state senator. Now, the court declined to make us all run. I figured they would.
I thought they would.
But I think their workaround is they can appear to be impartial by saying, look, we didn't make you all run. But if I draw the map and you're not in it, they could say, well, you don't live in it, so now you have to run. So they could argue and say, we didn't make you all run, but we're going to take a map that drew you out of your seat, paired you with another colleague, and so you're going to have to run. Even though you're in the middle of your term, which is constitutionally set and validated by the voters, signed into law, etc. So we really are in uncharted waters right now. And the only person that gets to make the decision is the court. And the only people overseeing the court is the court. And so they literally get to do whatever they want at this point. And we're just kind of going to wait and see what happens. So that's kind of where that is. So we're going to know a lot over the next few months. We're going to have a lot to talk about because I think they set a deadline of mid-January to see new maps by both parties. The court wants to settle on a map by March 15th. Because remember, if you want to run for state assembly, you're pulling papers on April 1st. So the court is literally going to draw new maps and give you 2 weeks to determine what district you even live in before you pull papers if you want to run.
And try to find someone in that time. But let's back up here. So you had mentioned this at the beginning, that the Supreme Court will likely be the one that will do this. But you also mentioned that the legislature, that's their responsibility. And in this preview for that article in WisPolitics, it says the 4-3 ruling released Friday urges lawmakers to take first crack at drawing the new lines. But the liberal majority said it will at the same time begin the process of selecting a new map on its own in case the GOP controlled legislature and Dem Governor Tony Evers fail to agree on a new map. So that last part I want to touch on here. So right now, the GOP controlled legislature is either actively right now or soon will be coming up with their maps, correct? Is that part correct before I go on? I just want to make sure, is that correct? Are they actually going to be doing this?
We haven't caucused yet.
Okay.
So I don't know. We could just appeal and say, we submitted maps, we're running under these maps, we're keeping these maps, or we could pass something different. But the ironic part is they could say like, oh, we're going to give you another shot. But the governor issued a statement.
Right, that's where I was going with this, that even if you guys were doing this right now or plan on doing it, the governor has already said that, no. So what's the point of even doing it? But maybe you should still do right. And that's the politics part. And Renee put in, and this is exactly what you're talking about, why can't we all just play in the sandbox? So drama, because that's politics. That's why, Renee. So, so if you don't, you may go another route. But really, let's face it, we all know.
Yeah,
Governor Evers isn't going to sign anything from the Republicans, and I'm not saying he's wrong for doing that. It is what it is.
Yep.
Because he wants this to go back to the Supreme Court, correct? Or likely.
Absolutely. So This is a perfect charade because it gives the court the appearance of being impartial. They're giving us an opportunity to correct the mistake. So, for instance, let's say the legislature takes their ruling to heart and says, you know what, we're going to fix all these islands. Even though you were fine with them 18 months ago, they've been there for 50 years, and they've been validated by federal and state court, but ignore all that, right? We could send a map back that, no more islands in Wisconsin, we're going to fix it, because we can do it like that, because there's no people living in them. It's not a big deal. But then Governor Evers says, I still think your map's gerrymandered and vetoes it. Then the court goes, oh, we gave you a chance. Now here's our map, right? So it's just all it's a predetermined show.
Got it. So now this goes back to what you were saying, which also I don't think I put this part in here, but you had mentioned someone from New York and somewhere else, two people. So the Supreme Court. So let's just assume in this scenario, which seems to be the likely scenario, that the Supreme Court will then be the ones who will decide what the maps are. Are these the 7 Supreme Court justices sitting down and looking at a map? Or obviously I shouldn't say obviously, but it sounds like they're delegating this to someone who knows how to do these things, and they only have 2 people, right? 2 people, one from New York and one from somewhere else. Who do you know who picks those 2?
The court did. The 4 liberal justices picked them. So there's no oversight on the legislative branch or even Governor Evers on who they choose to give them input on what the map looks like or should look like. And so in my mind, as this plays out, we're probably going to have a map foisted on us, drawn by people who don't even live in Wisconsin.
Well, there's goods and bads of that. Well, probably more bads than goods, but there is some good because they're not a part of it, so it's like easier. It's like giving advice rather than taking your own advice. If you're away from the situation, I think there's some benefits to that. To be honest, I don't know if I'm really comfortable with just 2 people. That's weird. Like 2 people decide that the maps are. That's kind of weird. But you're saying the 4 liberal judges are the ones that picked them, so this didn't go to the Supreme Court where, okay, now that we've come to this conclusion, the 7 of us will now decide who's going to be these 2 people. So the 3, in this case, conservative judges had no input on the selection of these 2?
I'm guessing they dissented. I don't know how that played out.
Okay.
I mean, they've dissented on even bringing this case forward because they even mentioned, rightly so, and again, for those who are skeptical of even me or Republicans, go back and read Justice Hagedorn's comments where he even said the fact that these people were just fine with this 18 months ago, any other plaintiff, any other case, this court would have thrown the case out immediately. We wouldn't even be litigating this right now. But it's because there's so much more to this, and it's political, frankly. So
we have a question here from Brian. I don't know why all of our comments are really large. Do you support the Republican avenue of running to the U.S. Supreme Court for state concerns when it benefits them? To be honest, I'm not 100% sure what that question is.
So in this case, for instance, if the court oversteps its bounds or institutes a map, for instance, this happened last time. The court instituted a map that violated the Voting Rights Act. The GOP appealed to the federal Supreme Court, and they threw the maps out. So it came back to the state, and then we implemented a different map, which we have today. And so
now it makes sense. I thought it was just Supreme Court. I missed the U.S. Supreme Court for state concerns. Now I get it. I apologize, Brian.
Yeah, I think if a state court gets an issue wrong and there needs to be an additional oversight, then absolutely you appeal. I mean, that's what it's there for.
Yeah, and I'm not, well, I can't certainly speak for you, but I don't know if that's necessarily a Republican avenue of running to this U.S. I think that would be anybody. If this was flipped around, Democrats would do the same thing. I'm just assuming, maybe not, but I don't know why they wouldn't. Right?
Well, I mean, that's what they're doing right now with the state Supreme Court, right? We have maps that are settled law, and they introduce a lawsuit the day after the election.
Well, that's
right.
True.
So, I mean, they're running to the Supreme Court to get an answer they want because they can't win legislatively. So,
and honestly, that's how it's supposed to work, too. That isn't just politics. That's kind of how it's supposed to work. That's why we have all of these things.
Yeah, and I would argue even this whole process smells because at any other court case, you would sue in a court where you're complaining, right? But these plaintiffs wanted a ruling directly from the Supreme Court immediately, and this court took it up immediately. It did not go through a lower court and make its way up to the state Supreme Court. They came in, they took the case, they pulled it before them, they had a pre-baked ruling ready to go, and now here we are today, and we're going to see how this plays out coming through March.
So do you think there is a likely scenario here that the deadline is March 15th, or at least that's like kind of their own set, we need this by March 15th, that it will go past March 15th? Or is it, no, we have to have this done? Because let's face it, if it goes past that, you can't change the maps. I mean, I suppose you could, but you can't. right? You just can't. That's not fair to Republicans, Democrats, anyone that wants to run. You can't do that. It has to be by then. Do you see any scenario where it could be, like based on appeals and et cetera, that this could drag it out past the point where we had to have had those for this next election?
I don't think they'll allow it because we just can't. I mean, think of the nightmare this is creating for our clerks, our county clerks. I mean, you have to order ballots. That stuff's set in stone. We have statutory deadlines we have to meet for elections, and this is already going to be a nightmare for our county clerks. So I feel bad. Apologies to all of you out there who are administering our elections.
Yeah, no kidding. And now in your scenario, Dan Erickson, okay, it's not actually a question. If somebody has a question, please put it up. I try to just put up questions on the show. Dan, relax, Romaine. You can win even with fair math. Just won't be in the majority. Whoopsie. Where was the forget. I'll get to that in a second. There's a couple other here, but where was I going with that? So how do you think your seat is going? How do you think this could play out? Let's say the maps are redrawn. Now we're talking hypotheticals, and we could just do this all day. So let's not go down that rabbit hole. Except I do want to ask hypothetically, if you are kind of redrawn where you live, because I think you're kind of at the edge of your state district or ish somewhere. So if it's like 3-4 miles away and you're not in there, are you going to move? Or are you going to you know what? I'm out.
Yeah, at that point, you'd have to move. No, it's not unheard of that's happened. I know in 2010 with the new maps, I think now Senator Andre Jacques was a representative. He sold his house and moved into his district because the lines changed. And realistically, no matter who draws the lines, you should be taking out the address residence of incumbents, right? Because those kinds of decisions should not play into what the lines should look like. You shouldn't be drawing them around where the current representative lives. But you shouldn't do it the other way either. Purposely draw them where they're not where the current representative lives too, right? So, yeah, that's a decision all of us will have to make at some point if we wind up in that scenario.
Yeah. And Emily says, Sapak, so that'd be Representative Sapak once said it was shaped like a dinosaur. Now I can't unsee it. Yeah, and I think you talked, Emily, I'm not sure if you were able to watch at the very beginning, but Romaine, you were talking about that the islands and how everything looks. If you could just real quick recap what you were saying regarding the islands.
Well, I don't think the 73rd has any islands in it. She's just talking more along the overall shape.
Correct.
But again, yeah, there are districts where there are pieces of land that are not contiguous. They're not connected. But again, it's because it's been this way forever. And the Constitution actually says you should try to keep municipalities together. And so that's why these islands have always been accepted, because technically you're keeping them in the jurisdiction that they belong to. So you're passing constitutional muster. Now we're throwing all that out the window and then saying these islands don't count. They have to be contiguous, which I would argue is fine. We can fix that because most of the time people don't even live in these areas. They're just annexed pieces of land that a municipality wanted for one reason or another. That's
interesting. Now I'm going to have to go back and look at them and kind of zoom in on some of those islands and see. So how many people really actually live there?
A vast majority is between 0 and 20 people. So that's why it wouldn't even really change the lines, because people are really going to have the same amount of people in the district. It's not like there's a community of 5,000 people that are part of a district that they're not even close to. That's just not the case. So it's totally fixable. And if that's the new law of the land, then I think we should go back and fix it. But again, the fact that they're not saying just fix it and we'll be fine. They're saying all of you get new maps, even if you don't have islands, I would argue makes it political.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to now. As soon as we're finished the show, I'm going to start researching as much as I can to find out who these two individuals are, because it sounds like these are the two individuals that are going to be the deciders. So I would like to kind of find out some more information about them
on your show
and what their background is. And I don't care if they're liberal or I don't care about that stuff. I just want to see what is their expertise in this. Have they done this stuff before? That'd be really fascinating. I'm a little uncomfortable. I'll go back. I'm a little uncomfortable with just two people, and maybe that's better. It's better than having 21 people do it because nobody can agree. But I don't know, two people deciding all of that. That's weird. That's a little weird.
Real quick.
Well, that'll be interesting. So obviously next month when you come back on, because you come back on the third or the last Thursday of every month, we'll have a lot to talk about on this. It sounds like this is going to be a conversation we'll be having going forward. I wanted to ask you, speaking of some conversations that we've had ongoing, the last couple of months on our shows, we've talked about the Barron County Republican Party. I think 2 months ago, we kind of went into that a little bit further. Last month, we just kind of touched on it a little bit. What is the status there? Catch people up real quick on the bullet point version, what had happened, and then if you could give us an update.
Yeah. So most of what's happened since has to be kept confidentially. But I don't think it's going to stay that way because I think one side likes to leak things to other people in other counties to try to build support. But yeah, I know it's no secret anymore that the state party came up and held a hearing at the college in Rice Lake. So everyone could air their grievances and they could get a handle on what's actually going on. All the information said in that closed meeting was confidential, but I would say that it was pretty damning. And so I would be shocked if the state party doesn't take some kind of an action to correct the course of our current leadership here in Barron County, which is something that I believe we absolutely need. I don't think the current leadership represents our regular party members. And I think they are hurting our image as Republicans.
Sure.
And so I hope that's something we can address before we head into the 2024 cycle.
Okay, that was since there's a lot that's kind of confidential and you can't really share much about it. When do you anticipate a decision or an actual update that you'd be able to? Do you think by next month? Is this something coming up in the next week or two, or this is going to drag out for months?
No, I'm hoping. My hope is that everything is done within the next couple months.
Okay.
So that all the drama's gone by the summer.
Okay. I forwarded you an email yesterday, which I think was fine because I think that's what they didn't ask me to do necessarily, but I don't really understand it. It was an email that was sent to us about CAFO and a bill that you had. They wanted me to bring up something, and I don't really understand that whole world.
Sure.
So I sent that to you. So in a weird way, this is actually for a group or a person or persons that wanted to have some information. If I had time, I thought I'd bring it up. You saw what it was. I didn't actually read through the whole the email part. I just read the beginning of it. I forwarded it to you. What is that about, and what is your take on it?
Well, I thought you would like to dive into it because I know you're an expert on agricultural policy. I'll comment on it. What they were referring to is a bill that Representative Prushinsky and I introduced probably a couple of weeks ago now. And we titled it the Preserve Our Farm Acts. And basically, it is a preemption of local governments from instituting policies that regulate our area farms more stringently than state standards. So the concern is this. We have seen since COVID a number of people move into our areas that have never lived in Wisconsin, which is great, but they come from different backgrounds. And even our own people, every generation, we are more and more removed from the farm. I think only 3% of our population even farms anymore, but most people in our area, they're 2 generations off a dairy farm, 3 generations off a dairy farm, but they grew up in the agricultural lifestyle. As we continue to remove ourselves from that, it's easier and easier for the majority of people to dictate how farms operate, even though we might not be the experts and even understand agricultural practices. And so what we don't want is townships, municipalities, cities with extraterritorial zoning implementing laws that make a farmer's life miserable when they don't actually know what they're talking about. So the concern with the email that they sent, which I agree with, is what about CAFOs? So what's a CAFO? A CAFO is a concentrated animal feeding operation. And a CAFO is defined by how many animal units the operation has. So I think a full-grown cow is worth like 1.5 units. A calf is like 0.5 units. Oh. So once you get up to 1,000 animal units, you're a larger operation, you're considered a CAFO. Our bill actually exempts CAFOs from the regulation. And so livestock siding, other things that impact CAFOs, large farms, are not impacted by our bill because that wasn't our intent. They come with a whole other host of issues, potential problems, potential opportunities, and I think those need to be handled separately. But for the medium to small farms, we don't want the town of Rice Lake coming in and saying, we believe it's inhumane to dock animals' tails anymore. Well, if you've never milked a cow and stood behind it while it was waving its poop-filled tail in your face while you were trying to work, you really shouldn't have a say in what a farmer does, especially if a lot of these practices are normal or humane or have been that way for a long time. And I would say, our farmers are, first and foremost, they care for the land, they care for their livestock. If they didn't, they won't be in business in these markets. And so I think they are the best to make those decisions. So we just want to prevent people who don't know what they're talking about from impacting some of their operations.
Okay. See, that actually kind of made sense to me a little bit. Because I also have not. We grew up around, outside of Shell Lake, out in the country of a small town, surrounded by farmers. But I've never, hung out on a farm. But I remember going to a friend's house once, and we went into the barn. It was the first time into a barn. I don't know, it was high school. And holy cow, literally, holy cow. Cows are big. And I grew up in Nova Scotia, but I just, never had a farm. But oh my goodness, they were a lot bigger. They really scared me. But so basically so this is just something that kind of protects these farmers to allow them to be the ones that are, you said, kind of the ones that are deciding. How do they do that?
Yep.
How are the farmers the ones that are being able to decide what to do?
And so our bill only applies to agriculturally zoned land. So if your county, we have county zoning in every county, designates that certain parcels of land are considered agriculturally zoned. Uh-huh. Other municipalities can't come in and restrict what agriculture goes and happens in an agricultural zone. So that's all we're saying is, county, you've designated this area as agriculture. You don't get to impose new kinds of regulations on what kind of agriculture gets to take place in there. If you said it's ag, it's ag. And so townships, counties, or other municipalities can't interfere with the agricultural practices that are going on. And we've seen that, I think, in larger urban areas where, even in Rice Lake could be an example. When Walmart goes in and everyone hates when the roadies spread manure on Saturday when everyone's shopping, things like that. Whereas as communities continue to grow and develop in these farm country, we need to make sure that those people who have always practiced the way they have are still allowed to do so.
No, when you said you and someone else that introduced this bill, when you go, even just your own caucus, other Republicans, they live obviously in different areas. Maybe some of them, big or larger urban areas. Do they kind of get the same look that I get, which, is, what's this now? What's this about? Huh? Who cares? Because for me, it's like, whatever, I don't care. I mean, I'll trust other people to make these decisions. But is it a hard sell to your own party sometimes that, no, this is important? I know you don't have these maybe in your district, but it's important. Is it hard for you to sell that sometimes to your own party?
It just depends on the issue. No, this one, not so much, because I think a lot of our members, especially our older members, again, grew up on a farm. You look at Congressman Tiffany grew up on a dairy farm. Senator Markline grew up on a dairy farm. A lot of them, our colleagues did do that. But again, over time, less and less will have that experience. So I think it's more important to do it now while we still have people with that background knowledge than later on down the road.
Yeah.
But there are other issues that are tough to sell, for sure.
We'd like to see a segment regarding new maps from a Democratic viewpoint. Well, elect a Democrat in our area, and then we'll have them on. No, I'm sorry. I mean that not sarcastically. We have elected officials. When Janet Bewley was in office, she was on multiple times, and Patty Shockner was in office. We've had her on. But right now, in our area, there are no Democrat-elected legislators. So, yeah, I'm not sure who we would have on. Yeah, I don't know. So maybe next election cycle, after the maps are redrawn, we'll have a Democrat in the Assembly or maybe even in the Senate. Hey, how's Rob Staffsholt doing? I haven't talked to him in a while. Your counterpart.
Good. He's looking like Santa Claus. I wonder, I don't know, maybe if Rob's watching, are you going to shave him?
I saw some of his photos. I'm like, what? Like the last time I had him on, looked like Rob Staffsholt. And then I saw some pictures of him on Facebook, and it's, holy cow.
I saw him on a Harley ride last week when it was nice out. So I think he was growing it out to protect his face for his December Harley rides.
Okay. All right. So what else is going on? You said this just started 2 weeks ago. I was under the impression that everything is pretty much shut down right now. So clearly I was wrong, as usual. But you said this was just a couple weeks ago, but I thought, session's over. So there's still things being done.
Oh, yes. So I was in Madison up until last week. Obviously, I'm zoomed in from my home today. Don't have to be down there. Any day in northern Wisconsin is better than any day in Madison. But yeah, it's been actually a busy December. Apparently, some of my colleagues don't like to be at home. And so we've had lots and lots of committee hearings, executive sessions, moving bills, getting them ready for the January floor dates. We are going to be on the floor at some point in January and in February, taking a lot of this stuff up. So we are moving bills. We got 4 bills signed into law. Gosh, 2 weeks ago now.
Do you remember what they are?
Nothing earth-shattering, but
Okay.
I think an important one, though. So for seniors that are on senior care, it's a state drug prescription program for seniors of modest income. Previously, you could only get a 30-day subscription of your medicine. So you would have to go to I'm totally
Well, you have to go to either go to your pharmacy, have them request a new one, or contact your doctor, but you do it every 30 days.
Yep. And so I know, for instance, firsthand, when I used to come home from Madison, my grandmother was alive. My mom would call me and say, "Hey, can you get to Ostebauer's and Rice Lake quick? Because grandma's going to be out of her meds over the weekend,
Sure.
and we don't get off work till 6." And so this would allow families and those on senior care a 100-day prescription. And so that way
nice.
they're more likely to continue to take their meds more regularly. It actually saves the state money on dispensing fees because we're not paying the pharmacist every 30 days versus every 100 days.
No, we love this, right? These are the kind of bills that we love. It's a win-win. It sounds like, I'm sure some people won't like it for some reason, but that's fantastic. So it saves money.
Yep.
And, more convenient. You said senior care. So what age is this usually about?
I don't know if you have to be 62 or 65 to qualify in Wisconsin. I'm not sure. I can find that out for you though.
Oh,
So
I was just curious all right, so about that age, and then it's a 100-day instead of a 30-day. Oh man, that is actually fantastic. Like, no kidding.
Yeah.
And this is like what I think a lot of times people don't see these are the kind of bills that do get done. I'm sure Democrats were all for this too, right? I mean, how would they be against it? This had to be a bipartisan bill.
It was.
Right. So this is the stuff that, we always talk about the bigger things, the things that are on the news, and those are certainly important, not undermining that at all or taking anything away from those. But this is the stuff that does get done. That is awesome. Little things like this. Little things make a big difference is our mantra on our Ben and Fitzy show. This is huge. 30-day now to 100-day, especially consider like winter. It's hard to get out. And if you're 70 years old, it's already hard, could potentially be hard for you just to get there anyway. But now we have a snowstorm or something go through and you can't get there. 100 days covers a lot of winter.
Absolutely, almost all of winter now because we don't have any snow. So you pick up your prescription tomorrow and they could get you
That's
the rest
awesome.
Of the year.
Yeah, Renee, that is yeah.
Very good.
No kidding.
And that's what we've always tried to done. Obviously, the larger issues are always in the limelight,
Sure.
but we continue to focus on little things all the time: broadband expansion, rural infrastructure, rural healthcare. We actually just passed a bill. I believe we passed it out of the Senate. It's waiting for the Assembly, which would expand our rural residency program for physicians. We know that we do not have enough physicians in Wisconsin, period, actually even nationally. But it's especially harder in rural areas. And it's very hard to take someone who's been practicing in Madison and bring them to Rice Lake or Ashland or Hayward. And so what we know statistically is if we can take a Wisconsin resident that goes to medical school in Wisconsin and place them in a residency program in rural Wisconsin, they are 87% likely to stay. And so what we should be doing is targeting these homegrown doctors and putting them in the areas we need them most. And unfortunately, a lot of these smaller hospitals, Spooner Health, Shell Lake, may not have the resources to take on these practitioners for their clinicals or their residencies. And so this program would partner with them, provide them funding to bring these doctors on, do their training in these places, and hopefully they fall in love in Spooner, Wisconsin. They buy a house they love. They create a network of friends, and they go, you know what? Now that I can practice on my own, I'm going to stay at Spooner Healthcare. And so those kinds of things make a huge impact. So our bill, we already put funding in the budget, but we blow the lids off the caps for existing programs. They can expand. They don't have to apply every year, so they know there's certainty. And we already know that both Ashland and Hayward are in talks of expanding their program right now. And so, 1 or 2 physicians that move to Hayward or Ashland is a game changer.
Huge.
For those communities and those hospital systems. So again, just finding those issues that we can make a difference on that aren't controversial is what we've always tried to do.
Yeah. Well, and I always appreciate you coming on. We're almost up against our time here. It is our last show of the year, so I've known you. I've told the story before that when we first started this idea of having like a live show, and it was going to be remotely done, and we didn't really know, what to do. That was back when my brother was doing it too. It was the Bat and Men show. We really didn't know, and we contacted like 12 or 10 to 15 people and asked them to come on for a show, and everyone said, "So what is it about? Like, what are the questions? Can you send me those?" I'm like, "Don't really have any. Maybe a topic or two. We're just going to kind of wing it." Everybody said no except for two people. That was Fitzy, Sheriff Chris Fitzgerald, and he was our first guest, and you. And that's when I first got to know you. This was 6-7 years ago. And now, of course, and we've gotten to know each other. We've become friends. I know that seems like a taboo thing to say, that a media outlet is a friend, but I've become friends with a lot of the people we have on routinely. You spend enough time with someone, you get to know them. It's, well,
Right.
like Patty Shockner, still a friend. She just texted the other day, and she was on our shows quite a bit. It's impossible not to develop a friendship and a relationship with some of these people. Now others, maybe not. Some people, maybe whatever. That's why they're not back on again. But you've always been transparent. You've always been open. You've always been kind and helpful to us, your staff. You've always made available if we had questions about bills. You've never said, don't do this story, or I'd appreciate it if you did. You've never crossed that line. But then, of course, when you became the senator, we decided to do a monthly show because you cover a large area of our 6 counties. So it kind of made sense, like what we do with Tom Tiffany, because he covers all 6 of our counties that we do, of course, or represents, I should say. So this is our 12th show because we started this in January, and I want to say thank you for coming on every month. You've never missed one. You've never said, I don't want to do it. You've never said, don't talk about this, or I only want to talk. You've always been open to whatever you want to talk about and bring up, fine. And anybody has a question, I'll answer it. So I want to say thank you for your willingness to continue to come on and have these conversations. Because again, only 2 out of 12, 13 people when we first started this said yes. That everybody else said no. Only 2 said yes. And that was 6-7 years ago. Unscripted live show. Believe it or not, a lot of people think, you're a politician, you always want to do that. No, trust me. A lot of politicians I've asked, and they don't want to do it. So,
well, I'm sure at some point one of our previous shows is going to come and bite me in the butt. But
probably.
That's all right.
Yeah,
this is the way it should be.
Speaking of Adam Jarkow.
Right.
Oh, that was great.
Oh.
Awesome. Yeah, so thank you very much for doing this. All right, anything else you want to talk about we didn't get a chance to?
No, and I just appreciate your openness to doing it. I mean, it's so hard. I think one of the hardest part for legislators is really to get communication out to the district. We have 180,000 people in our seat. It doesn't matter how many tours I do, stops I make, letters that I write in the paper regarding what's going on. I can't reach everyone. There's just no way to do it. And your outlet, we're lucky. I know a lot of my colleagues are jealous. They don't have a DrydenWire. And so your reach and importance, I think, is big too. So thanks for putting your show out there for those of us to be able to communicate with the public.
Well, thank you. And I always appreciate the hate mail every time, somebody comes on. So, hey, thanks.
Like
but I'm going to start forwarding them to you, and you can handle all those things. What do you have coming up this weekend? It's New Year's Eve. What are your plans New Year's Eve?
Not much, because when you have 2 kids under 3 years old, you don't do as much.
Oh, right.
You also don't do as much sleeping. You can see the bags under my eyes. My 2.5-year-old was up 4 times last night, so that was cool. But yeah, we still love them most days. And it'd be nice if someone made a manual on how to be a parent, but we've kept them alive and we're winging it, just like everybody else. So Not many big plans, just getting together with some family and hanging out as long as our kiddos let us to do that. So
yeah, I mean, I can't remember the last time I actually stayed up until midnight. I mean, it was fun for a while, but I think like 25, I think I stopped. Now it's just a regular night. Just go to bed. Yeah, no thank you. Awesome. Thanks so much. Happy holidays. Happy belated Merry Christmas. Happy New Year. We'll see you in a month.
Thanks, Ben.
All right. Special thank you to Wisconsin's 25th District Senator Romaine Quinn for taking the time to come on for a chat today, as he does every month with us here on DrydenWire Live. I will see you right back here on Tuesday when Barron County Sheriff Chris Fitzgerald and I will be back for our latest episode and our first episode of 2024 of Positive Tuesday with Ben and Fitzy. So until then, for DrydenWire.com, saying thank you for watching. Happy new year, and have a blessed day.